The Buccaneers are one of the top 10 teams in the NFL, at least according to one analyst. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this Tuesday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at @JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers as deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com. Here with you Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show, become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message, no ads, no hashtags, no anything, just text conversations with me. You could do so by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs. The link is also in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. One roster move that an AFC Scouting Director thinks the Bucs should make, and some training camp news coming up in a little bit. But let's start things off with Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, who I have referred to on this show as a card-carrying member of the Bucs Haters Club. Florio dropped his NFL pre-training camp power rankings on Pro Football Talk, and there was, to say the least, a big surprise in his top 10. Florio posted 1 to 2 sentences as far as his reasonings for these rankings, and his top 10 looked like this. At number 1, you had the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. Number 3, the Detroit Lions. 4, Baltimore Ravens. 5, Philadelphia Eagles. 6, Green Bay Packers. 7, Buffalo Bills. 8, Cincinnati Bengals. 9, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And at number 10, the Houston Texans. Whoa, wait, I'm sorry. What was that, Mike? The Bucs in the top 10 and actually ahead of the media darlings in Atlanta, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Miami, Dallas, and Cleveland? I am legitimately stunned and will no longer refer to Florio as the resident Bucs hater, or at least not until he gives me a reason to do so again. Florio said regarding his ranking for the Bucs, quote, "For some reason, they still aren't being taken seriously. They should be," end quote. As for the rest of the NFC South, Florio put the Falcons at 19, the Saints at 24, and the Panthers dead last at 32. This is what we've been saying about the Bucs all off season long, and finally someone listened. There's no reason that this team shouldn't be taken seriously and looked at as a viable contender in the NFC South or in the playoffs. Yes, I have talked plenty about where they need to improve and things that have to be done better. Yesterday, I talked about the 4 Bucs players, 2 on each side of the ball, that have to step up if the Bucs are going to find success. I have talked endlessly about how good Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Antoine Winfield Jr. and Levante David are. I have heaped praise on Baker Mayfield for what he was able to accomplish while also criticizing where he needs to be better. But no one, absolutely no one, has been able to explain to me why the Bears or the Falcons or the Steelers are constantly discussed as being contenders or being ranked over the Bucs, or why they have better Super Bowl odds than Tampa Bay. Yes, the Falcons have a good roster and they have some top level talent. I'm not denying that, but not to the point where they should be the runaway favorite in the division. I've already talked about Kirk Cousins being overrated, and the best part of his game being his agent's ability to negotiate insane contracts for his mediocre talent. Baker has won as many playoff games in Cleveland and in Tampa, counting them separately, as Cousins has in his entire career. He had Stephon Diggs, he had Justin Jefferson, he had Dalvin Cook, and he couldn't win. Why is it going to be different in Atlanta with a downgrade at receiver, a equal running back with the potential to be better, but also we haven't seen it yet, so it could be a downgrade at the running back position? What makes Atlanta Kirk different from Minnesota or Washington Kirk? Nothing. To me, nothing makes him any different other than his uniform now being the worst one that he's worn in his career. Florio actually calls out others who continue to overlook and underestimate the Bucs, not by name, but in general. And based on his initial sentence, he doesn't understand what is going on with the national narrative either. 2 teams in the league have made the playoffs each of the last 4 years, the Bucs and the Chiefs. There were no crazy changes to the roster to think that that won't be the case again this year. In fact, their roster got better, which I have talked about on this show. Center, upgrade. Left guard, upgrade. Safety, upgrade. Wide receivers 3 through 5, upgrade. Running back room, upgrade. And they didn't get worse anywhere. Edge rusher was an issue last season, and they didn't get worse there. At the worst, they stayed the same. Inside linebacker, Britt isn't a downgrade from Devin White. At worst, it stays the same. Cornerback, with Davis being injured and inconsistent last year, at worst, it stayed the same. This team is built to win in the regular season and make some noise in the playoffs. You guys know I'm always honest with you, and you know that I will not hesitate to criticize Bucs players or coaches when necessary. And if you don't believe me, I challenge you to go back and watch my immediate reaction episode following the loss to the Houston Texans when I went on an absolute tear into Todd Bowles and what happened there. Shout out, hat tip, high five to Mike Florio over at Pro Football Talk for his power rankings, for his 2-sentence explanation, for all of it. Someone finally appears to get it. Could a late addition to the Bucs roster make a big impact this season? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus every single day. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Right now, the Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco 49ers are tied at plus 600 apiece to win the Super Bowl, while the Buccaneers are at plus 5,500, trailing teams like the Chargers, Steelers, Jaguars, and Bears. They're also at plus 290 to win the NFC South again, trailing the Falcons. So if you think the Bucs are going to win the division again, jump in now and make yourself some money. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Everydayers, make sure you are coming back tomorrow for a WTSP Wednesday. I will be joined by Evan Klosky on the show. We had a week off last week because of all of the craziness going on with me. Evan is back this week. In the meantime, if you want to hear the latest news from around all sports, you have the Stanley Cup Finals ending last night. Congratulations to that team that won Game 7. Obviously, I'm recording before the game, so I have no idea who won. But you have Stanley Cup Finals reaction. You have NFL news year-round because the NFL never sleeps. You have baseball in full swing, and you want to hear more than just the national narratives, and you want the biggest stories with all that without all that fake manufactured screaming at one another. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today is available 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Something interesting popped up the other day from Matt Lombardo. So Lombardo used to cover the Giants and Eagles as a beat writer, and now he runs a blog called Between the Hash Marks. He was discussing a big name free agent still floating out there without a home just a month before teams are set to report to training camp. That big name free agent is cornerback Xavien Howard. Now, Howard has been with the Dolphins since he was drafted in the second round in 2016. In his career, he has 29 interceptions, 95 passes defensed, 4 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries, 4 touchdowns, 2 sacks, 4 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros, and a third-place finish in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Quarterbacks completed less than 55% of passes when targeting him in 3 out of the last 6 seasons, and they completed less than 60% in 4 of the last 6. Howard missed 4 games last season, 2 games in 2022, 1 game in 2021, and he is still sitting out there on the open market. When Lombardo spoke with an anonymous AFC Scouting Director, that person told him, quote, schematically, he'd be a really solid fit in Tampa. The only reason he's still available is his asking price. He wants top dollar, but injuries and declining skill at his age could make it tough to get top of market money. Howard's 29 career interceptions rank 4th in Dolphins franchise history, and the 30-year-old is coming off of a 2023 season in which he held opposing quarterbacks to a paltry 86.7 passer rating when targeting him, as opposing receivers averaged just 11.7 yards per reception when lined up against him. The Buccaneers have the pieces in place, they believe, to begin the 2024 season in the NFC South pole position, and Howard is the type of plug-and-play perimeter corner who can elevate the secondary. Now, while I don't think there are any more splash moves left up the sleeves of Jason Light, this is one that I think he should strongly consider and try to work out. At this stage in the game, Howard is not getting top dollar. Those players are already locked up and got their money. We are really entering the third wave of free agency now, and prices are outlet mall clearance bin low. That helps the Bucs. The Bucs currently have a little over $8.5 million in cap space heading into training camp. And for reference, Xavien Howard made $12.25 million last year and just came off of a 5-year, $90 million deal with the Dolphins, where he had a little over $36 million guaranteed at signing. His contract before that, he was making $15 million per year. Right now, he's set to make nothing because he's still a free agent. An incentive-laden contract with around $5.5–6 million in guaranteed money could be enough to entice him to stay in the state of Florida with that no state income tax and show the NFL world that he's still worth the kind of money that he's been asking for. This gives the questionable Bucs secondary a huge boost while hedging their bets after trading Davis. I talked on Monday's show about how much Zion McCollum has to step up this season, but it's not just him. Jamel Dean is coming off arguably his worst season yet, and he is now the cornerback one with a bad injury history. If the Bucs bring in Xavien Howard and he can all of a sudden take control of the cornerback room, you're looking at a situation where the Bucs could actually get out from that Jamel Dean contract after the season and allocate that money to Xavien Howard for another 2 to 3 years. Dean is making $12 million this year, $12.5 million next year, and $13 million in 2026. If Howard was brought in and then Jamel Dean underperforms, the Bucs can release Dean with just under $7 million in dead cap, but it would free up almost $30 million in cap space over the next 2 years. That is more than enough to keep Xavien Howard in Tampa if he performs well enough to earn that. it really, I mean, and I've said it time and time and time again, and I understand you still have to get the Tristan Wirfs extension done. You're still looking at trying to keep Chris Godwin here, and he's going to need a lot of money. You have Rachaad White coming up on a contract year after this season. He's going to have to get paid. You have a lot of these pieces that have to get their money. Jordan Whitehead is not on a big long-term deal. Levante David is still touch and go as to whether or not he's going to continue playing. You have Vita Vea, who is, about halfway through his contract extension. Kalijah Cansey's going to need a deal sooner than later. You have Joe Tryon-Shoyinka in a contract year because his fifth-year option was not picked up. You have Randy Gregory. God only knows where he is, what he's doing, if he's even going to contribute this year at all. You have all of those questions. So signing Xavien Howard to $10+ million with all of those things going on, that's a little bit tough to wrap your head around at the moment. You could say, look, the Bucs can look to the first round of the NFL draft next year, and they can take a new cornerback to pair with Zion McCollum, and they can still get away from that Jamel Dean contract, and that's absolutely accurate. They could do that. You have Christian Izien, who might be able to transition from the slot to the outside. You have Bryce Hall from the New York Jets. You have Tavierre Thomas from the Houston Texans. You just drafted Tyke Smith. You have all of these other options, but are any of these guys able to step up and be a cornerback one? Can Zion jump from the sideline to cornerback 2 to cornerback 1 in the span of 3 seasons? Those are a lot of question marks. That's why I continuously point to the cornerback position as being one of the biggest questions surrounding this Buccaneers team in 2024. Xavien Howard gives you a little bit of a safety net, gives you a little bit of a reprieve, a little bit of insurance to be able to go out there with some more confidence after moving on from Carlton Davis. It gives you flexibility heading into 2025. It gives you options. If Jamel Dean goes out there and he balls out, awesome. He's back next year for $12.5 million. Locked, loaded. Let's do this thing. If he struggles the way he did last year between injuries and performance, he's not getting any $12.5 million. It's just not going to happen. The Bucs could trade him for a day 3 pick and get out from that money that way. But, if Jamel Dean has a season like he had last year, he is not going to be a member of the Buccaneers in 2025. Xavien Howard gives you a reliable, multi-Pro Bowl, multi-All-Pro resume to come in and bridge the gap from now until your next franchise cornerback one, whether that's in the draft, whether that's signing another younger guy in free agency. However the Buccaneers approach it, they could get 2 to 3 years from Xavien Howard, and they could do so at an affordable price. We are talking equal to, maybe even a little less than, what the Bucs are slated to pay Jamel Dean over the course of the next 3 years. So it takes 2 to tango. But if I'm Jason Light, I am certainly asking Xavien Howard and his agent if they want to dance, just to see where Howard's mindset is. Guaranteeing him $5 to $6 million is probably going to be the best offer that he is going to receive at this stage in the game. Then you tack on another $4, maybe $5 million in incentives. We're talking interceptions, Pro Bowl, All-Pro, playoff starts, minimum games started, snap percentage, things like that. Howard could come away with close to $10 million this season, and having done that after signing a contract in late June, early July, and then the opportunity to cash in again next spring after he has shown the NFL world that he can still get the job done. This is a win for everybody. Training camp news that fans are going to want to hear. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Wrapping things up here on a Tuesday episode of the Locked On Bucs podcast, and we have ourselves a training camp update. The Buccaneers announced their training camp schedule and will have 2 practices open to the general public and 10 practices that will invite fans to view. So starting on July 24th, the very first training camp practice, the Bucs will have Community Impact Day, where local community groups will be invited to watch that first training camp practice. Then July 25th, practice will be open to the general public. That's day number 1 for all fans. July 28th is for Junior Bucs fan club members, youth flag football participants, and Special Olympics guests that will get to partake in activities with the players after practice. July 29th and 30th, practices are open to crew members, better known as season ticket holders. August 1st is Women of Red Day, which is always a very fun, very popular day at Buccaneers training camp. I've been there twice for Women of Red Day, and it is always a great time. August 2nd is the second practice that will be open to the general public. August 3rd and August 6th are for crew members, season ticket holders. And then finally, August 7th is Military Day presented by USAA, where there will be a welcome address, the national anthem, a demonstration from the Coast Guard, and a post-practice combine in the indoor facility. Tampa, of course, has a large military population with MacDill Air Force Base right down there. So always a great turnout for Military Day. For those that want to attend, you can get a digital ticket through Ticketmaster's account manager, and it is required to get in. The Buccaneers are charging a reservation fee to secure your spot for that digital ticket. However, you're not actually paying for admission. That fee turns into a donation to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Foundation, which of course helps numerous charities throughout the city and the surrounding area, and of course helps out some of the fellow players' own charities. Chris Godwin has one, Baker Mayfield has one, Mike Evans has the Family Foundation, Bruce Arians has one. So all of that money gets pooled together for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Foundation to help out charities. So you get to watch Bucs practice and you're helping a great cause at the same time. Now, Scott Smith, friend of the show, has an article about this on Buccaneers.com with a link so that you can sign up for notifications when tickets become available. When all of this was announced, Buccaneers COO Brian Ford said, quote, "We look forward to once again welcoming our fans back to the Advent Health Training Center for the start of training camp as we prepare for another memorable season of Buccaneers football. Our players and coaches love the added energy that our fans bring during training camp. And this season, we have raised the number of open practices to 10 in order to accommodate even more fans." End quote. For those that have never been and want to go, I do highly recommend it. It truly is a lot of fun. I have met some of you at training camp before. And of course, if you have young ones, there are autograph sessions after practice where they take the kids out onto the practice field, and then players will come over and they kind of make a circle around where all the kids are, sign autographs. They sign jerseys, footballs, mini helmets, full-size helmets, all kinds of things. And the look on those kids' faces when real football players come over and sign something for them is just absolutely incredible. There's lots of activities around the area. There's a Bucs pop-up shop from Fanatics. It's really a great time. And I was just talking to my son over the weekend when we were on the Maid of the Mist to see Niagara Falls. And he had said, that was one of the top 5 experiences that he has ever had in his life. And I asked what the other ones were, and he told me going to Buccaneers training camp was probably still number 1 on his list of all-time favorite memories. So it really is a lot of fun for you to be able to take your kids and go do that. And one of the really nice things is that all of these open practices, except for one, starts at 8:30 in the morning. So you can go and you can watch practice and you're done before the heat of the day really kicks in. That one that isn't at 8:30 in the morning is actually a primetime practice that is for crew members. So that, of course, is again, always a great time for the season ticket holders. And I know a lot of you have been asking about training camp dates, and some of the insiders have texted me about it. So there's news for all of you. If you're not a season ticket holder, you have to be quick on the trigger for July 25th or August 2nd. Those are the two chances that you will have to get in and see practice and see how everything goes. And again, I can't recommend it enough. If you've never had the chance, but you've thought about it, I would say definitely go and do it. Unfortunately, I won't be at training camp this year because I'm going a little bit later to cover week 1 of the season, cover the Buccaneers and the Commanders as I reunite with your friend and mine, David Harrison. That is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Bucs. Please check out everything going on over at bucsnation.com. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're subscribed on YouTube, turn on the notifications so you know anytime that I go live. And if you want to become a Locked On Bucs insider, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.